Hello, YouTube. It is Murromensch. I'm back here again today, and this time we're going to be going over the base. A lot of people talk about the base and what you should and shouldn't do, and what are better strategies, what are things you want to avoid, and bring up the timing of when you want to change operators, whether it's like an 8 hour rotation or 6 hour rotation, how often you want to check. But then none of them go in and actually rotate their operators. So I wanted to show my base and what I do when I go in and do rotations. I know my operators are set and ready to do that right now because I've given it a few hours since I've checked in. And I also today fire whistle.
Might as well build a grenade tower.
You're
over
great,
here.
but why are you interrupting me?
Oh, you're awake? These are blanks.
Yeah, they're not blanks. I'm still hearing
Just
you.
blanks.
Okay. So besides that interruption, I also want to go over what a check-in looks like. I play this game on my phone. So what does it look like when I'm checking in on my account? When I tap in, when I get up in the morning and have woken up enough to look at the game? When I take my breaks at work? When I'm coming home to chill? What does that all look like? And how do I balance that even on days that I don't want to play and want to do something else? So we're going to go over all that. And I added in the showing taps function. Hopefully that helps with the recording so you can see where I'm pressing and what I'm going into. So as you can see, going into here, see all my factories and trading posts are ready to collect. Gonna hit those notifications and tap that, get the collectibles, the L&D. That's all pretty straightforward stuff. For those of you that don't know, for the trust, when you are at the evening hit, so for me it is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that the evening trust hits. In the morning will be 6 a.m. for me. Different operators are going to get the trust. As you can see, it says 5 and tap to collect. Those 5 are just the assistants in the evening. Whoever you have set to the control center as your set assistants, those are going to be the ones who get the trust bonus. This is who I have now because I want all of them to get to at least 100. In Puzzle's case, I may want to get him up to 200. I'm not sure yet, but there's nobody else I really need to throw into that slot. You want your operators to have 100 trust to get their best bonus for your own personal use. And then any operators that you have set to be support units are going to give that bonus but halved. So if you have, say, 100 trust exactly on one of your support units and someone borrows it, they will get 50% of the trust bonus. So any operator you want to loan out and put in as a support unit should have 200 trust. That's not going to be every operator you have. There's going to be certain key operators that people are looking for, and those ones you want at 200. So when it is up to 200 trust and someone else borrows the unit, they will have 100%, which will be the full stat trust bonus that that operator offers. So these are the only ones that get the trust from tapping in at the evening trust hit. And in the morning, it will be everyone that's in any of your facilities will get that trust bonus. So let's go into the overview here. You have someone slotted in anywhere here, they're going to get a trust bonus. So when I have everybody on a good rotation, I've managed to make sure that everyone has full morale going in before I go to bed at night. I'm on top of my rotations throughout the day in order to make sure that that's better and that happens. So when I wake up in the morning, I can start going into rotations. I normally have extra spaces. Like you can see, I don't have this dormitory filled. Spaces like the workshop become very useful because obviously you're not using or working anybody there, but you can put someone in there who you want to give a trust bonus to. It's much more efficient and faster to trust farm with stages. I'm not going to go into what that is. You can look that up. There's other creators that have trust farms set up and what that is. But if you want a little extra out of your base without having to do anything, or for like operators that you can't throw into rotations on other stages, as long as they are somewhere in this base when that trust goes off in the morning, then you're going to get that trust hit. So that's something that I wanted to bring up before getting into the base itself. We want to talk about rotations today. As you can see, I am at what is called a 2-4-3 base setup. This is not the optimal setup. As far as the math and statistics go, people have proven a 2-5-2 setup is going to get you the most battle records and the most LMD production, like gold production, and therefore more LMD more consistently. But I do use 2-4-3 because I like having everything maxed out. I know it's not as efficient, but we are going to be going through this, and I will be highlighting some differences in how a 2-4-3 setup will be rotating through its operators, since things like the factory will most of your factories will only have 2 operators instead of 3. And the one bonus is that because all of your dormitories are maxed, unlike the 2-5-2, you get morale back a lot faster, so it's a lot easier to recover units if you let a lot of them get low on morale. You haven't checked in a minute. It's better to get on the rotation you need to get into. Thanks, Discord. I did not get a collector's box of the new Magic the Gathering set, but that's neither here nor there. But so I use 2-4-3. There are definitely benefits and more you can get out of 2-5-2, but I'm going to link a video in the description that Kukikaze made. He is a fantastic Arknights YouTuber. You're going to get a lot of information out of him. But that video I linked in, I love what he says about the base, in that you can do more things with your base in order to get more out of it. How much LMD production you get, how much gold you produce, and how many battle records you make, how easy it is to make your rotations. There are things you can do to improve that number. And the more of them that you do, the higher those outputs will be. If you don't care about what operators you put into your base, and you just put whoever in there so that the base is running, you're going to get pretty low numbers. If you care about what kind of teams you have in the base at each place, then you're going to get better production and produce a lot more per day. And if you run a 2-5-2 setup as opposed to a 2-4-3, that is going to get you to that next level of an extra several thousand, if not 10,000 experience in battle records, and an extra amount of gold as well per day, since you're running 5 factories instead of 4. There's a lot to go into there. He does a lot of math with it. And he goes into a lot of explanations about how different things work with that. The reason I'm still making this video is because I want to show you exactly what I'm doing with the rotation. He does not actually do a base rotation while he's in there, though he does highlight a lot of things I think is very important. That is a great starting point as well for the base. So do check out that video after this one if you haven't already seen it. But shout out to him for really bringing up that you don't have to do 2-5-2. You don't have to do any of the things that we mentioned, but there might be a certain level that you want to reach, and you should know how to get the most out of this base so that you are passively generating the resources you need to upgrade your characters and progress through this game. So now let's jump into what I have set up for my teams. I do want to start off with something simple: the power plants. You might be thinking, why the heck are you going into power plants? You can see down here the chart speed natively because of how I have the base set up. I get plus 5%. And then good old Gray here is giving me plus 20% because of his base skill. Let's go into the overview here and take a look at that. So we've got Gray here. He gives 20% in the power plant. We have Pudding giving 15%. And we have Gray, the lightning bearer, also giving 20% because of my max drone capacity. Because I have 200 max drone capacity, he's giving 20%, 1% for each 10 of those drones. So because of how having the base fully upgraded, he also is a usable unit for a 20% bonus. How I go through my rotations with this is also similar how I rotate some of my other groups of 3 here. You'll see this factory here, that is always a gold factory. You will also see this factory down here with Frostleaf, Vigna, and Shiryuki. That is always a battle record facility. And they go on similar rotations. So as you can see I can tell at a glance that Gray here is the lowest. I swap him for Golden Glow. Golden Glow is also 20%. And Pudding isn't completely out. I swap Pudding for Lescarm. So I always have 2 operators that can produce 20% for me, and 2 operators that can produce, and 1 operator, I'm sorry, that can produce 15%. So I have a constant rate for my power plants, and I'm never missing out on that. I always have enough people for that. Could I do a rotation where I have 3 at 20%, and then as they get lower, I swap out 1, and then there's periods of the day where I'm down to 55% total across my 3 power plants? Yes. I like this rotation, and this works for me, and it keeps me in a lot of drones, which after you've upgraded your base to whatever your fullest looks, be it 243 or 252, you are getting as many drones as you can to pump out your gold production. I almost never use it for battle records, basically never, and there are instances where I use it in the trading post, but I will go over what I do with the trading post and why I use it as we go forward. So those rotations are done. I popped a few people in. We're going to get someone else in here. I like Doran and Ambriel, Penance, Myrtle, and Siege for their support in the dormitories. So Doran has the best dorm recovery skill. When I do my rotations, there's always at least 1 person with a group recovery skill in there, and then 4 operators that need to regain their morale. In the case of Penance, she goes into the HR office. When she comes out to heal, she takes up that spot, so she's like a free restore in that dormitory. That's very nice. But they're all giving like a Doran's the highest, plus 2.5. Penance gives plus 2.0 if you have her. Ambriel is giving plus 2.0. Myrtle and Siege are similar if it's plus 2 or plus 1.5. I'm not sure. But I always have that in there to increase the amount of morale they're gaining back so that I can use those units again faster. But why did I separate Gray and Pudding? When I do the rotations for those facilities, I have like 3 spaces for an entire factory or a trading post, and then I have 3 spaces for another entire factory or trading post. So when that team comes out, I can rotate them all back in at the same time. I know they're all healing at approximately the same pace. It just better for me to keep it organized and what that looks like. So I said that this team here follows similar rotations as the power plants. I'm rotating not everybody, but just pieces of the team at a time. Right now, Pure Stream's at the lowest. Her bonus, every trading post that I have makes this factory's precious metal formula related productivity plus 20%. So because I have 2 trading posts set up, she is plus 40%, which is huge. So plus 40, plus the gravel. Gravel has the highest individual version of metalwork. She gives 35%, and Spot gives 30% as well as Haze. So this is the evening hit. I'm going to be checking this again before I go to bed. I'm taking Pure Stream out for now because she's the lowest and putting Haze in. Overall, this is going to lower my total productivity for right now, but I always rotate out the lowest one when I come in and check in, get a fresh person in there, and then put someone else into one of these facilities to get them to start restoring their morale. We're going to do the same thing here. In the case of the EXP, all of them are currently the same. Frostleaf does not get her EXP skill until Elite 1, but overall, at the point of the game that I'm in, promoting her to Elite 1 is so cheap that it's worth having her for the rotation to add for Shirayuki, where I already had her, to Feeder, and to Vigna. If I promote Feeder to Elite 2, she'll be like Gravel, where she goes up to 35 instead of 30. For now, we're taking out Shirayuki, we're putting in Feeder, and we're putting Shirayuki into a dormitory. We're going to take out Fiametta, and we're going to get Siege in there. So yeah, plus 1.5 for Siege and for Myrtle. Ambriel and Durin are the best at it. Ambriel's not upgraded at all. And it just makes it so that they gain so much faster, including the dormitory ambience. For the next one, might be a surprise for some of you here, I'm taking out this team. This is only my standby team for the trading post. I only put this team in when I need to restore my other 2 very significantly better teams. This team is good. Plus 30% for each of them. Morale consumed per hour minus 0.25. You see the time remaining on Midnight. He can last for another 51 hours. This whole team could sit in the trading post for 2 days and I never have to touch them. Then I put them back in the dormitory for like 8 hours when they're that low. They're going to be back up to full and I can put them back in. This team is very easily accessible from an early point in the game, so I highly recommend using them. For me, I have enough other units that they are my standby. I use Lapland, so no percentage bonus here, which is normally horrible. You want to be looking and making sure that people are producing efficiency. So like Matorimaru, Fang, Moose, they all give 30%. They're all like Midnight Catapult and Gummy, and they may be the people that you have that you can use. In my case, I get a bonus with the Lapland and Texas connection. I don't really care about order limit plus 4. That doesn't really come up with how consistent I am with checking in. And her having a reduced amount of morale consumed per hour doesn't matter as much because Texas, when she's paired with Lapland, uses an additional plus 0.3. So Texas is one of my Fiametta operators. I'll go into what that means when I do a switch with Fiametta in a second. But the order acquisition efficiency plus 65%. So she covers the 30% for herself that, say, like Fang would give, and the 30% that Lapland isn't giving that, say, like Moose would give, plus an additional 5%. So this pairing, as opposed to 60%, is giving me 65% order acquisition efficiency. I don't have Exusia, who gives an additional bonus to this team. Like, this team is a trifecta. I don't have her, but these 2 together still do work very well. And then I go over here and I use Jay, who I've not upgraded. He's plus 4% for every difference of 1 order between the current number of orders and the maximum number of orders, which is a lot to take in. and assess. You're going to need to read some of these operators to understand how much is going on. But Jay paired up with this team because of what I said was worthless earlier. The plus order limit 4 means that that's giving Jay an additional 16% he wouldn't have otherwise. This is on top of the already 10 order limit that the trading post has at base. So he is getting an astounding plus 56% order acquisition efficiency when paired with this team. So we're going to swap that in. I'm going to back out and take a look at them real quick. 128% faster than usual. It would normally only be 121%, but one of the control operator skills does give plus 7% to the trading posts. You have Amia, so you've probably seen that already because you've probably upgraded her. She's one of the units you are your story gated unless you upgrade her, so you will have her. That's also providing this bonus, but this is an insanely fast team for the trading post to constantly get orders and constantly sell your gold and constantly produce LMD. So I always use these three together. They work extremely well together, and this is the fastest efficiency that I have, at least for percentage, in the trading post. So we've got them in. I want to go back into the overview. And I want to make sure that I put away the operators that I took out so that when I need them again, I'll need them in a few hours. I'd prefer to switch out this top trading post team before I go to bed tonight, and replace them with this group here. I can probably get away with not switching them. I might not, but I like the option. I'd rather have more than enough operators at full morale so I can switch rather than have to catch up and try and get them all healed up. So we've got that factory switch done. We've got the battle record factory switch done. My trading post taken care of. My power plants handled. Now I do want to go in here. This one, if I have penance available, penance is in the HR office. For her skill, plus 50% is the fastest you're going to get. The brand new Silence the Paradigmatic has a plus 40% rate. Acid Drop has plus 40%. Utage does. Orchid does. Ethan does. They all have plus 40%. Any one of them as your backup, or any two of them just as your constant switch back and forth for that, is going to work just fine. In the case of Utage, she might be one that you need for clue searching in the reception room. I happen to have better units for that, so I don't need to use a 20% unit anymore, but I'll go into that in a second. So if you have Acid Drop, she's a 4-star, you're eventually going to pull. Lone Trail is out right now, beat the 5th stage, you're going to get the Silence. She's a great 6-star unit anyways, and for free, it's amazing. So just having that 40% HR office increase is great, but Penance has the best overall HR office skill. That morale consumed per hour plus 0.5 is no joke, though. She runs out of morale all the time, but that makes it a huge benefit that she gets additional morale, and if you have 3 slots added to your recruitment, you have the full 4 slots, you're getting an additional bonus on that. So she has one of the best morale restoration skills in the game as well. Huge benefit out of a small package, out of one operator for your base. Love having her. Would I recommend pulling for her just for that? No. But if you have her, you should be using her to the full extent that you have. So we have her set up. We get her right in there. Don't want to mess around and wait on that. Whenever she's available, I put her back in. Whenever she's like at about halfway, because 40 to 50% difference isn't that bad with recruiting. It's not the most important thing in the world. So like I can switch her out early and not really miss out on much, but it also gives the bonus to everybody else that I want to restore. Now let's go into Fiametta. So Fiametta is very interesting. you're going to notice with this factory here that I have with Vermeil, with the Phalines, and with Kobe, that the Phaline is a little bit lower. The Terror Research Commission, they go through their morale a lot faster than the other two because both of the other two have a morale reduction. Like they consume morale per hour at a slower rate. So Terror Research Commission doesn't have a negative bonus. I'm just going to back out. It doesn't have a negative bonus, but they are normal when the other two are losing it at a slower rate. So they drop out faster. Likewise, the same can be said for Yato, the Yato altar up here. So I have this team set up, and she winds up losing her morale a lot faster as well. Like her morale loss per hour is plus 0.5. Just like Penance, she dives through her morale quickly, but she adds 8 to the Felvine, which adds to that factory team. Your control center can wind up affecting your other facilities a lot more than most other places do. So that's important to read into. When I don't have this team set up, I'm keeping this team in. But when I don't have this team set up, I'm typically using Amiya, Changyu. Changyu has an interesting bonus. Let's look into that. I don't have other Worldly Plight characters. The other dragon siblings do have that, so that adds a bonus. But when he's in the control center, operators in other buildings just automatically recover 0.05 morale per hour. If I had more Worldly Plight, that number would jump up a lot more, and that would keep my operators in their factories, in their trading posts, in their positions a lot longer. So there's more benefits I have from the other team than from using Changyu with it. But when he's in on that sub team, that keeps everybody alive much longer, lets me do check-ins less often, so that helps out. I use Amiya, Changyu, and then you see all these other smiley faces. I pick another 3 of them. Basically any of them except Project Red. She's hard stuck in the clue research when I need her there. But yeah, if you don't have the altars like Kieran or Norkhorn and don't have alternates like Hibiscus of Purifier Cruz, they have an interesting skill as well. You just want to make sure you have people in there that are going to help each other as much as they can. Just increasing the morale of all operators in the control center by 0.05 an hour means you have to rotate them out a lot less often. And keeping one of these skill effects with the paper, that's the plus 7% trading post efficiency I was talking about earlier. That's what actually Nor has with esoteric negotiations. But he has to be assigned together with either Kieran or Yato or the Terror Research Commission. In my case, it's Kieran because Terror Research Commission is the only one that benefits from the Felvine +2 that he gives, and the Felvine that Kieran also gives that increases their bonuses a lot for that specific place. So right now I'm taking out Kieran temporarily. We're going to go over to this dormitory here. I'm going to put Kieran in, and then I'm going to put in Fiametta. She gains +2 per hour on her own, but cannot gain morale from anyone else. So any of the other bonuses I was talking about that other operators give out to people in the dormitories, she can't receive those bonuses. But her communal suffering, when she's assigned to the dormitory, if she has full morale, which she does right now, she swaps around with the previous operator assigned to that dormitory, which would be Kieran. I just assigned her, so we hit confirm. You see that Yato altar is immediately at full, and Fiametta has taken that. That way, I can take what was the lowest person in here, who was already halfway through her morale, and put her back into the control center to keep that team going. Hopefully, Fiametta is reset by the time that I'm done, so that way I can do the same thing with the Terra Research Commission and get them back up to full so that they can still partner up with KOB and Vermeil to continue producing at an extremely good rate in that factory. So let's look at the reception room for a second. There's something I want to talk about with rotation that you want to be really careful about. When I backed out of the factory earlier with KOB, Vermeil, and the Terra Research Commission, I did that instead of confirming because it would have swapped up positions of operators. Why does that matter? We take a look here with Inez. As you can see, I took her out, so Gaetano took spot 1. I clicked her again, so Inez took spot 2. That swapped the positions. So for skills that care about how long an operator has been in that position in the base, it will reset that timer. So if you're reading Shadow Gathering here, when this operator is assigned to the reception room, clue search speed increases by 20%, then by another 2% per hour, up to a maximum of 30%. So if I hit confirm right now, she would go from that total 30% bonus that she has worked up to get to at this point and drop straight back down to 20, even though she did not leave the reception room and just switch positions. The game doesn't know that she didn't leave. It just knows this operator was just assigned to a new position. They just started their shift in this job. So I'm going to hit back. I'm going to go back in. You're going to see she's still listed as position 1. So I still have that bonus active. For the first few hours she's in there, she's at a lower rate than my other operators. So every other operator I use, Gaetano, Project Red, and Vigil, all that says something different. In his case, it's Dawn Diplomacy. In her case, it's Tracker. But they all increase it by 25%. I constantly pair Gaetano and Inez, even though there's no actual difference. It's all 25% either way. For the 3 of them, I could pair Inez with either one of the other 2 and have the same results. But I keep these 2 locked in there together until they are both basically out of morale, down to like 4 or less morale, so that I have the longest possible window of Inez getting that faster bonus. So I'm a total of 55% clue research speed instead of 50. There's other ones you could use, like you have Puzzle here. It's only a 10% increase, but he's going to give you a clue that you don't have, more likely. Same with Cantabile. It's all packed into one skill. You just have it. That 10%. So I like getting clues faster, even if it's clues that I already have, so that I can give them away to friends and share them to people so that more people can open up their clue receptions. And then they typically tend to return the favor with what clues I need. And if they don't, it's not the worst thing in the world. But I get more clues, and I've chosen more clues per day as opposed to specific clues per day, and I prefer to run my base like that. Now these 2, I'm not going to replace them. Like I said, it took a long time for Inez to get to that 30% efficiency point, and it only benefits me the most if I run her for a very long time, because it starts at 20 that first hour, goes to 22 on hour 2, 24 on hour 3. Like, I lost time those first 3 hours. Hour 4 is 26. That balances out the 24 from hour 3. Hour 5 is 28. That balances out the 22 from hour 2. And hour 6 is 30, which balances out the first hour. So by the end of hour 6, I'm at a net 25% clue search rate. And then every hour from 7 onwards turns into 30%, 30%, 30%, just holds for as long as possible, and I keep it like that. I might switch that off before I go to bed, but with 13 morale, 1 morale per hour, I'm going to be going to bed and waking up before they're out. they can sit there the entire time I'm sleeping, get that increased clue search speed. I'll wake up and have another 2 clues in my reception room when I get up in the morning. So that helps out a lot. Now, I want to go over one more thing here, and it has to, well, 2 more things. Let's start with the trading post. As you can see, I have Proviso, Fire Whistle, and Arknights in here. Arknights gives plus 2% for every level of each dormitory. If you are running 252, this is a bad operator to use because your dormitories are probably level 1. You might have one that's level 2. I'm not sure of the exact statistics since I don't run 252, but she will not give you much of a bonus. If you have a 243 base, then that plus 2% means she's giving you a plus 40% trading post acquisition efficiency, which is amazing. We look into Fire Whistle. Other operators working in the trading post have plus 15% order acquisition efficiency. That just means that because I have a trading post with 3 operators, she's giving plus 30%. That plus 30% is about the best I can manage with this whole crew. If I eventually pull a minimalist, then Pozemka is going to be better. I won't go... Oh, I will go into that. So for every pure gold line, trading post order acquisition efficiency plus 5%. And each Doran operator, who you can see if it will let me highlight it, Minimalist, Myrtle, Chestnut, and Doran. I have 3 of those 4. I don't have Minimalist. If they are anywhere in the base, doesn't matter if it's dormitory, it doesn't matter if they're doing anything, they could just be sitting and chilling in the workshop, they're adding a pure gold line. So right now, I'm running 3 battle records and 1 gold, so it doesn't make sense to run Pozemka. I'm not going to get the full bonus, but when I'm running 3 gold and 1 battle record, and I put Doran, Chestnut, and Myrtle in there, I'm getting the same bonus that Fire Whistle would give me. If I pull a minimalist, then it's better for me to run the 4 of them and put Pozemka in there instead of Fire Whistle, because it will be a higher acquisition efficiency for that trading post. As it stands right now, Fire Whistle and Pozemka are tied until I get Minimalist, and Fire Whistle just works all of the time without having to worry about my gold production lines. So I keep her in there. So what about Proviso? You've probably heard about her. Anytime the amount of pure gold traded is less than 4, will be considered a defaulted trade. What does that mean? Thankfully, the next line explains it. When this operator is assigned to a trading post, if a pure gold trade is a defaulted trade, pure gold traded plus 2. So normally, all of the orders that come in are traded for 2 gold for 1,000 LMD. You trade out 3 gold for 1,500 LMD, or 4 gold for 2,000 LMD. With Proviso, there's no order acquisition efficiency on her, but the amount of gold that she winds up adding for you to trade at any one time means she's making sure you sell a lot more gold than usual. I know somebody else has done the math. It equates to like 138% or like 145%. I'm not exactly sure. So this team, as it stands right now, beats out the 128% that I get out of Lapland, Texas, and Jay, just because Proviso sells more gold at the same time. If a gold trade would be a 2, it's a 4 instead because of her defaulted trade clause. If it would be a 3, she's trading out 5 instead. And if it's naturally a 4, then it's still a 4. So instead of a chance at a 2, a 3, or a 4, you have a chance at a 4, a 4, or a 5. Minimum 2,000 gold every time that one of the orders comes in. So you're selling a lot more, and that's where you're making up the efficiency. But you still want to jack up that efficiency number around her as much as possible to get as many of those trades in and around. So when I talked earlier, I said sometimes I use drones on the trading post. The reason that I use drones on the trading post is because, let's say I just put Fire Whistle, Proviso, and Arquetto into the trading post. Proviso does not recognize that order as one that she can put through a defaulted trade. It starts with the first order that you start acquiring after they've been put in. So if I just put them in and expected, okay, the next trade I get in is can be a defaulted trade and it's gonna be 4. No, I'm waiting an hour and 17 minutes in order to get a trade that could still be a 2 or 3 gold trade that she won't upgrade. And then I've wasted over an hour of a lower efficiency team just to get to the point of them being at their full efficiency. So I will use drones here, hit max, confirm that. I'm not confirming it now because this team has already been in there, but confirming it and then accepting that order that gets confirmed in order to immediately go into the acquiring the next order that will be affected by Proviso's default trade clause. Additionally, I will use drones on this team before I take them out. If I take them out before getting the last order, they won't just miraculously remember, hey, Proviso was on this team, so it could be a defaulted trade, and then it'll increase the amount, even though there's other operators in here. No, once you take them out, that's gone. So again, in this position, if I were to take them out right now, I'd be doing the same thing, going to use drones, hitting max, confirming it, and getting that last 4 or 5 gold trade to maximize my LMD out of this team, and then swapping the team out into the dormitory to heal so that the next team gets on its normal order acquisition efficiency, and I don't again lose out on the back end of this Proviso skill either. So very important if you're using Proviso for this, that you keep that in mind with the orders. You want to put them in when you start out and clear out the last order with drones and accept that so that it can get started. And before you take them out, make sure you clear out that last order, get the last order with Proviso that you can before you rotate into a new squad. If I'm not doing that in the trading post, I am specifically going in to where I have a pure gold and maximizing how fast I get the pure gold. Right now, I don't have to think about it. I only have one pure gold line up. All of my other lines are running battle records, but it's always gold even when I'm running 3 lines. The only difference with 3 lines is that I am going to the factory with the lowest productivity percentage. So as you can see here, this is 97%. This goes up to 102% when I have pure stream gravel and either haze or spot in this position. So they're never the lowest squad. But then it's like 92% here. Doesn't matter if it's battle records or gold, they're going to be producing at 92%. This Mizuki team, always at 92%. When I have the Monster Hunter collab operators in the control center, they add 2% to each of the factories. Very tiny bit of efficiency. You're not missing out much if you don't have those, but it does add a little bit to it. So that's why I prefer having that squad in there. Every little bit can count. But yeah, I will always have, when that is the case, I would look at this, see, okay, I have 97% here. This is 92% right now because Kobe has reached her max. Kobe has a limiter just like Inez does. I'll go into that in a second. But the Mizuki team is always firing at 92% the moment you put them in. So I look at which one has the lowest. It's typically going to be the Kobe team when I put them in because she will start off lower and then ramps up to her maximum. Whichever is the lowest productivity percentage, I tend to use that one so that way I'm getting the most out of every line that I can. But again, that's little stuff. That's nitpicking, but if you care that much depth about it, then that's where you want to use your drones. So the other thing I wanted to go over, I said there was two more things I wanted to cover before this ended. One of them was the trading post stuff and where I'm using the drones and all of that with Proviso and where I put the drones in. And I do the drones on the pure gold exclusively, regardless of how many gold lines I'm running, because I always want to be maintaining how much gold I have. We're going to back out of the base for a second so I can show you what I'm talking about here.
Good day, Doctor.
Go into the
Sure,
depot.
fine.
Right now I'm at 224 gold. When I drop to under 100 gold, I swap to 3 gold lines and 1 battle record. When I finally get back up to about 500 to 600 gold, I prefer like 600 now, that's when I swap back over to 1 gold production line and 3 battle records to really ramp up my battle record production again, and then just slowly work through all the gold that I've already accumulated. Your best output with a 243 base will be when you're at 3 battle records and 1 gold production, because the trading posts decide how much money you're getting, not how many gold production lines you're running. Gold production lines just mean you have enough gold to continue selling. But they don't actually hand you the money until it goes through the trading post, though. Whereas battle records, you're either producing them or you're not. That is the currency you need for EXP, rather than gold being something you trade in for currency for the LMD. So when I have 3 gold lines up and just 1 battle record, my experience production is a lot lower. But no matter what the factories are configured at, my LMD production stays exactly the same at all times. So when I get back down to 100, that's when I swap out, and I use the drones to increase how much gold I have regardless of setup, because if I use it on gold when I have 3 battle records set up, then I'm making more gold to prevent myself from getting under that 100 threshold that I set for myself for a longer period of time, so that I can make more battle records for a much longer period of time. And then when I'm down to 100 and switch to 3 gold lines, I'm still putting those extra drones into gold lines because I want to get back up to 600 gold as fast as possible over the course of like a couple weeks, I think. I never really keep track of the exact time. I just check in on occasion and see how much gold I have. And then when I'm at that 600 level, I can swap the base back over. And the base swaps are easy because of the way that I have everything set up with my exclusive skills always staying in the same factory. This will always be a gold production line, so I don't have to worry about one of the gold production skills being in a factory that I want to switch to battle records, because that will always be operators with a generic skill that work for either one. Same goes for this one. This will always be my battle record, so I never have to worry about an EXP skill being in a factory that I want to switch over to a gold skill. That will always be there. It makes the transition easy when I swap back and forth between those two setups. I do not recommend running a 2 and 2 setup at any point if you're running 2-4-3. You should always be in 3 of one or 3 of the other and going full steam ahead into one of those 2 categories. 2-5-2 has the luxury of running 2 of each of these factories, and the third one being switched to what's needed more gold or battle records, and you're always producing at least some of each of them. So having 5 factory lines producing materials, even though you can only have 2 operators at max in most of those factories because they have to be at a lower level because you're running less power plants, even with that, you are producing more materials over time. So it does help you out, but the difference isn't enough for me to want to make the switch from 2-4-3. It is more, but it's not enough for me to want to worry about it. I like the way, and I'm used to the setup I have. And I am consciously acknowledging that I am losing out by not being in 252, which is not the same thing as saying 243 is better than 252. It's not. In terms of production, it isn't. But that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make running 243. Again, that Kukikaze video that I've linked in the description highlights that, and he's been the first person to be sane about that discussion with these bases. It has been an argument for a long time, an argument in the Arknights community of whether 252 or 243 is better. Honestly, for production, 252 is better. I just like 243, and that's a valid reason to choose it, but don't be deluded in thinking that 243 is making you more or can make you as much as 252 when it's not going to. I'm not delusional. I understand what I lose by running 243 and choose to run 243. That is a healthy mindset to have, and use whatever's going to work best for you. You want to make a much better production and be very intense about how you produce materials through Arknights, by all means, go for 252. I like how to run 243 and how much easier that has been for me to keep maintained, and having the 3 operator teams in all of my factories, and just having the fully upgraded office and workshop and reception room, and being able to have more friends. Like, I can have up to 50 friends because I have a fully upgraded reception room. You're capping yourself on how many friends you can have and how many different support units you can use if you run a 252 base. But that's still valid if you have the right friends to provide the right support units you need. I prefer having more friends and more variety there, and more options to get clues, which in turn turns into more credits to use in the shop on a daily basis, which does not balance out how much 252 gives you over 243, but it is a method that works, and it's valid to want to use that for that reason. But by no means take this as any kind of information that 243 is better. It is just my preference. Thank you for tolerating that rant about all of that, but I feel it's very important to go into. Finally, we're getting to the last bit of it. I want to go over these 2 teams here. We have Mizuki, who has a standardization skill and gives an additional 5% productivity for every standardization skill in the factory. So he himself is 30%. His own standardization skill is seen by his first skill. We have Perfumer, standardization 25%. He adds another 5, so it's like that's operating at 30%. And Jessica is also standardization. Be very careful about these logos if you're using Mizuki, because Silence has the same logo, but it is a Rhine Tech skill, which will not get the bonus from Mizuki. You will only be crippling yourself, similar to Fartooth. Pinus Sylvestris is not a standardization skill. In fact, Steward and Vanilla are standardization. You will have a Steward and a Vanilla. You'll be able to use them with Mizuki, no problem. You won't need a Perfumer or a Jessica if you don't have them yet. Jessica you get free at some point. But you do want to be very careful if you have Mizuki and you're using that to not just blindly pick someone that has that square symbol. Make sure you read it. You need a standardization skill. I do not have the Rhine Tech lab set up yet. That is also a huge bonus. You use Dorothy with that, but I have to upgrade Dorothy in order to get the full bonus out of that. So until I upgrade her to Elite 2, she's not part of my factory rotation. Nor is any Rhine Tech skill lab thing going to be part of the rotation. But Mizuki, Perfumer, Jessica, Mizuki, and any 2 Rhine Tech skills, I mean standardization skills, going to get me 90% base operation capacity in the factory. Now we look at this team here. you've probably heard people talk about Vermeil. So capacity limit +8, morale consumed per hour -0.25, fun times. Recycling is the important thing. It's worded weird here because of translation, but operators assigned to the factory that increase capacity limits add 2% productivity per limit increase. So in the case of Vermeil, she is upgrading the capacity by +8. So she is giving herself a +16% productivity increase, which is not good. The baseline that you're looking for at minimum is 25%, like with Stewart or Silence or Fartooth. When I have to take one of these teams out entirely, I tend to put in, like, say, Stewart, Vanilla, and Fartooth, put them in. I've got 75%. It's not great, but it's a decent enough baseline. In fact, I actually tend to use Silence, Fartooth, and another random one down here, Totter, who has +30% when he is initially put into the base. So, but every 4 points of morale difference, he loses 5%. So he goes down to 25, then goes, once he's at 20 of 24 morale, then goes down to 20 when he's down to 16 morale. But if the morale difference is greater than 12, he recovers some of that and goes back up by 10%. It's weird math. Basically, you're getting the most out of Totter if you only keep him in a factory for a short period of time. Basically, under 4 hours, you're getting the most out of him. I try to do it that I swap out these teams in under 4 hours. So, like, take the one team out, put Totter, Silence, and Fartooth in within 4 hours. And if it's not exactly 4 hours, that's fine. I lose a little bit and it's not the end of the world. But definitely within 8 hours, I switch back to the other high productivity team. And so instead of having only 75%, he pushes that team up to 80%. Those little bits help. You got to read up on who you've got and what's working with that crew. So Vermeil is the key to this team. That increase in capacity is everything. We're going to be careful with KOB here. I'm going to make sure I don't hit confirm because I just reset her. She's also a +8 -0.25 like Vermeil is with the first skill, but the second skill base 20%, then +1% every hour up to 25%. So after 5 hours, she's up to 25%. She starts lower, but because of that +8, she's getting an additional +16 from Vermeil. So initially +36% productivity, that goes up to +41%. So Vermeil enables people that normally don't have as much productivity to turn that capacity into productivity to more than make up for the deficit Vermeil has herself. And Terra Research Commission is the same way. So the first one you could ignore because it's not in a trading post. I never use them in a trading post. I have great teams for the trading post, so I never have to worry about that. I always use Terra Research Commission here because for what I have, it's the best of what I've got. There's other operators that will eventually be a better fit than the Research Commission, but I don't have them upgraded to E2. This little guy was able to do this right away the moment that I got them without any investment. So capacity limit +8, so that's an additional 16%. Productivity +5, so that's a total of 21%, plus an additional productivity +1% for every Felvine, which comes out to be 10 Felvine from Yato Altar and Norkhorn Altar. So that's an additional 10% for 31% factory increase. So that makes up again for Vermeil and puts them up to a much higher level. And we will back out and you will see I have a 0.92. I probably did the math wrong with the Felvines. I'm not sure what the exact total is. But again, we're talking about the Mizuki level team, even though Vermeil herself is only producing 16%, who I put around them with the capacity increases has jump started that to an insane degree. But I do have to be careful. Like you can see, I went back. If KOB switches positions, C goes from the 25 back down to 20, and then I'm only getting 87% instead of the 92%, which is not as much of a deficit as like the Inez problem, but is still a problem. That's 5 hours I'm not at full productivity. I just took basically 5 hours to get them to the point where KOB was at 92%. I want to hold on to that and hold this team here as long as possible to get that maximum benefit. So it all ties together here. And that's what my switch outs look like. I've been talking so long. Let's see if there's anybody else I can swap out here. And switch back. Nope, everybody else is still resting. Look at this Trading Post team. Less than an hour of talking and they are already just about ready to go. But that is not going in just yet. That Proviso team, you're staying overnight. But once Fiametta is ready, I will be replacing doing the same kind of recharge with the Terra Research Commission. So again, I can keep that team up and running while this control center team is able to provide them with that Feldvine buff to keep them up and running. And one thing I didn't go over with the control center, one reason that I have this set up, you'll see Scotty the Corrupting Heart doesn't have a control center ability. So why is she in here? That comes down to Hibiscus and Cruz. They both have each alternate operator increases the morale of all operators in the control center by 0.5 per hour. Yato is an alter, Norkhorn is an alter, Cruz is an alter, Hibiscus is an alter, and so is Scotty. So having all 5 of them, just Hibiscus alone is giving plus 2.5 to each control center operator per hour, meaning that they're only using 75% of a morale each hour instead of 1 full morale per hour. That's just Hibiscus. Cruz has the same ability. So together, they are reducing morale consumption by half because I have Scotty. Scotty is just being seen by both Hibiscus and Cruz and is adding to that total for a full 0.1 per hour. I could use anybody else. There is Lava the Purgatory, who I believe has the same skill. I just have not gone back through the record restoration in order to pick up Lava the Purgatory. I do plan on going into that because Lava also has the same skill Hibiscus and Cruz has, which will amplify this to regaining 0.75 morale per hour. Means they'll basically last forever in here, and I won't have to rotate this team out. As long as I'm on top of Yato, because she still has that deficit, as long as I'm on top of Fiametta rotations with Yato, that I could keep this team in the control center for days before I have to switch them out. Like literally 2 to 3 full days before I have to rotate them. So those things are important to pay attention to and look at for your own account. You're not going to have all these operators or the same operators I have, especially if you're watching this video. There's a lot of people with more operators than I have, more varieties, different things that are going to be able to come up with different base setups. For some of you, you're going to have a lot less than this, and it's not going to make much sense to you for how to build with your own thing. Like, but Murrow, I don't have any of these people. You eventually will, and aren't you going to be glad that you had this information going into it and what kind of rotations I'm doing and what I'm looking at as I go through all of these? So that way you have a better idea of what kind of base setup you want. Do you want teams that you totally take out and replace with other teams while they heal? Do you want like 4 people to work in the same 3-person or 2-person job, like my reception room or a couple of my factories, so that they're constantly at their best over the entirety of my day, rather than losing out on things? Which teams are good for that kind of swap? a lot of things to think about that just made more sense by being in here and showing you how I did those swaps initially and then talking those things out. So I hope this supported you a lot. This has been an hour of me rambling about the base and the different swaps and combinations that I do. I hope this helped you out. Once again, check out Kukikazi's video. Link will be in the description in order to get a mathematical side of why you want to be on top of the things you want to be on top of. So that way, when you look at this screen up here, you can see similar results to what I've got, where you're producing over 40,000 battle record experience per day, where you are selling out anywhere from 50 to 58,000 worth of gold through your trading post each day. And that's a 45,000 because I was lacking yesterday and wasn't on top of my rotations. There was a little bit of burnout there, and that burnout's going to happen. But being able to come in and have this set up in a way where you can buy yourself time to not be fully attentive to this all the time. I feel like 243 lends itself to that a bit better. But then again, I'm biased. So take that for a grain of salt over 252. But you are going to produce a lot better things. And I hope this gets you a better overall production with what your base can do for you and what you can get out of it in Arknights. So this has been Mensch. As Super would say, max out your gummy and have a great day, night, evening, and life.
Good day, Doc.